All right, great. It looks like we're just past the top of the hour. We might have some more folks hopping on, which is great. I can kind of see the participant number ticking up, which is wonderful. So for those of you who were not on the call a few minutes ago, my name's Tara Zirkle. I'm Senior Manager for Community College Partnerships here at RaiseMe. So thrilled that folks have found some time to spend with us today to learn a little bit more about our mission, our student philosophy, and the tools that we have available for free for you. Just a few housekeeping things. So we're going to take a lot of pauses today to answer questions and to make sure that we are having a conversation with you and that we respond to the inquiries that you might have. You can see on the dash the Q&A option. Feel free to use that to submit any questions. Also on the line, we have Jamie Griffin, and I'll let her introduce herself, who works with Community College Partnerships as well, and she's going to help moderate your questions today.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Tara, for the welcome. My name is Jamie. I am with Community College Partnerships, and I've been with RaiseMe since last December. And a little bit about me: before I worked at RaiseMe, I worked in two-year colleges for over 10 years.
Great. Perfect. And that's us. We are real people. I also worked in community colleges for about 11 years prior to joining RaiseMe. So certainly have a lot of empathy for the position that many of you have been put in over the past few weeks. I think we've all found ourselves in scenarios that we kind of never thought that we'd find ourselves in, but we are here to support and learn from you. And I think with that, we'll get started. So our agenda for today is really concise. So our intention is to tell our story, who we are and who we support and kind of how we came to be. Then we're going to do an overview of our platform for community college students and also our platform for educators. We're going to round out our conversation with some best practices and a little description of our partnerships and how we actually work really closely with two-year institutions. And just for some housekeeping, I know this question always comes up. Yes, we will record the session. Yes, we'll provide the slide deck, and we'll make sure that everyone registered for this event has access to those things. So how we got started. So RaiseMe has been in existence for about 5.5, closer to 6 years now. And originally we were a tool conceptualized to help high school students kind of get to and through college. And our focus has really been not only how do we serve all students, but how do we serve some of our most vulnerable students who might not have access to college planning tools and have access to financial resources that can help support their aspirations as they consider their post-secondary options. And what you're looking at is actually our real office and our real colleagues. And we're really proud to say that many of us at RaiseMe are educators. We're people that have worked directly with students and with institutions. And this mission is something that we really carry near and dear to us. And the core problem that RaiseMe is trying to solve for students is when we think about, and this could be applied to a high school student or a community college student, is when that student's planning their post-secondary pathway. Often the trajectory that they're on is the student takes some courses, they apply to some four-year institutions, hopefully they're accepted, and at the end of that process, they might receive a scholarship offer. And our thought is that scholarship offer happens too late in the student's planning process to really impact their behavior, to impact their ambition, and really might come at a point in time where the student's already made some decisions. So our thought is, what if we could take that scholarship offer that's historically kind of the last conversation piece of the student's enrollment process and actually move it to the front of the process? And the way that we do that is through a strategy that we call micro scholarships. So essentially, RaiseMe works with four-year institutions to take that lump sum of money that's received at the end. We break it up in little pieces and allow the students to earn them over time. And for high school students, that can mean starting as early as ninth grade. And then for our community college students, that means starting as early as their first semester in a 2-year program. Students can earn these scholarships for academic achievements and co-curricular achievements. So an activity as small as getting an A in a course might result in a student earning a couple $100s. Or if the student did volunteer work. So for example, many of your students right now are donating PPE and they're hosting food drives and they're doing volunteer work to help their communities. Each one of those little incremental good decisions on RaiseMe is accompanied with a financial kind of high five, with the intention of really motivating students to do well, but also kind of showcasing what is the list of activities or menu of options that I should engage in if I want to be a scholarship student. I think when I think back to my time working in a community college, we talk to students a lot about scholarships, but it's not always clear what a student should do to earn those scholarships. So our intention is to make it pragmatic, small, actionable, and to really celebrate the little things that students do every day that can make them really successful when they decide to transfer. And when we look back at our high school population, which has been around for about 5 years now, we've had some really great success. And 59% of our high school students considered new college they thought to be financially out of reach. How powerful is that? 81% felt more confident about their likelihood to succeed in college. 62% discovered new colleges that are a good fit for them. And 67% considered applying to colleges that were unknown to them. And I think about myself as kind of a first-gen low-income student personally, the intimidation that students can feel when they kind of have this menu of colleges and they're thinking about where they want to go and what might be a good fit, to see that we can impact how students not only perceive colleges but perceive themselves is something that we're really proud of. So one thing that has happened is kind of after we had that success with the high school students, as we started to think about how do we replicate that with community college students who aspire to transfer. And this statistic is not shocking to anyone who works with 2-year students, that roughly nationally about 80% of students aspire to transfer, but maybe anywhere from 15 to 25% do. And obviously that means there are barriers that students are facing that are impeding them from actualizing that goal. And one thing I'd love to ask this group, and you're going to see a poll come up really quickly, and this is an anonymous poll. I would love for folks to just take a minute to think about, if you're a 2-year educator, the top 2 barriers that your students are facing. And if you're an educator that works with other students, maybe high school or a 4-year, what your perception is of what you think, your top 2 barriers that you think students are facing when they aspire to transfer. I know there's a lot to read through. I wanted to give you a couple options, so we'll take a pause for a minute, and then I'll share the results with everyone. All right. There's 2 options that are kind of neck and neck right now, and about 60% of you have voted, so we're getting close. All right, I'm gonna let it go for about 10 more seconds. Perfect. 81% voted. You're really good voters. We might hit 100%. I don't know that that's ever happened before. Great job. All right. So I'm going to end this poll and share it with everyone so you can see what your peers reported. But unsurprisingly, finding ways to finance their 4-year education is a huge barrier that students face. And I see also kind of rising to the top clarity on course equivalency, understanding the transfer admissions process, balancing work and home. All of these are absolutely barriers to transfer that I know that my students have experienced as well. And our intention is to remove some of those barriers. And I think these are all common ones that anyone would face. And let's make that poll go away. Perfect. So how does RaiseMe work on kind of a pragmatic level? So RaiseMe is a public-facing free platform that any community college student in the country can use for free. And many of you, even if you haven't partnered with us yet, have students who have already found us, which is really amazing. The process that students use to sign up is to go to our website, and I'll review this in a moment. I'll share my screen and actually show you what that looks like. Students create a portfolio with us, which takes about 5 minutes. They can use RaiseMe to discover different universities. So we have a queue of over 1,500 schools where students can actually use filters to think about what are the things that are priorities to me. Maybe I want a school that's in-state, that's a public school, that has my major. And we help students narrow down their choices so they can start to build kind of a list of schools that they might aspire to. As students move through their coursework, they actually enter achievements into a portfolio. And in that portfolio, they house their grades, work experience, co-curricular experience, and even what colleges they're visiting. Then in real time, every time a student enters an achievement into their portfolio, they earn real-time scholarships from four-year institutions all over the country. And we find that that instant gratification and that instant affirmation that the student's done something positive is a huge confidence boost and a huge motivator for the student to continue to engage in that behavior. And I think my favorite thing about RaiseMe as someone who worked in enrollment and retention for a long time is the achievements that students earn scholarships for are achievements that are aligned with retention and completion in community college. So taking a full-time course load, keeping a high GPA, meeting with academic advisors, hitting 45 credit benchmarks to show they're on track for graduation. So we, much like you, want to see your students persist and complete before transferring. And this is just a sample of some of the micro scholarships that our institutions offer, which we'll dive into in a moment. But you can see A's, visiting campuses, meeting with transfer professionals from four-year institutions, and even making progress towards their degree. Great. And maybe now's a good time. Oh, and if we have high school educators on the line, we kind of outlined how community college students engage with the platform. One thing I can say to you if you're a high school educator is if you have students who are currently using RaiseMe and they're considering a two-year institution in the fall, we do have a functionality that your students can turn on that allows them to convert their high school account to a community college account. And in the follow-up from this presentation, we're going to send some instructions for that. But basically what happens is we ask them to update their email address, indicate what two-year institution they want to attend. So we certainly want your students, if they selected a two-year school, to keep that continuity with us and to continue to earn scholarships towards transfer. Additionally to the public-facing site that we have for students, and I'll go into this in more detail when we do the demonstration, is we actually have a free site for educators as well. So if you are a community college educator, perhaps you're a faculty member or an advisor, you work in student affairs, you can request an account from us that permits you to see the students at your institution who are using RaiseMe and what they've entered in their portfolios, what institutions they're interested in attending, how much scholarship money they're earning, along with some resources. And as someone who did academic advising, I know one of the trickiest pieces of information for us to grab onto was what colleges do my students aspire to transfer to? Was very, very slippery, especially if that student wasn't meeting with the academic advisor or wasn't required to meet with the academic advisor. We didn't really have a good handle on, does the student want to go to Penn State or Pitt or whatever the case might be. Great. And we talked about some of this functionality, which I'll review in one moment. And I will also show you how to request an account. So all you would have to do is go to RaiseMe, indicate that you are an educator, indicate that you're a community college educator, and walk through the steps that are provided to you, which takes about 5 minutes. Perfect. So I'm going to check this chat bar really quickly to see if there are any questions before we go into the demonstration.
Looks like we have 2 questions in the chat.
Perfect.
The first question is, do you have any statistics of students? How many are high school students and how many are current college students?
Yeah, so high school students, we've serviced, well, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's over 2.5 million at this point.
You're correct. Yes.
And for our community college students, we have just under 50,000 community college students who are working with us, which is really exciting. Do colleges have to choose to participate in this? From a four-year institution perspective, if you're at an institution and you wish to offer scholarships to students, we do build a relationship with you that is contractual, and we talk with you and learn about what your priorities are, what kinds of incentives you would like to give with students. That relationship requires a bit of formality. From a community college perspective, if you would like to partner with us, yes, you would choose to do that. And that partnership is a more informal, we call it kind of a handshake relationship where there's no MOU, there's no contract. It's a good faith relationship where we actually work with you on engagement strategies. We can share some data about your students. And we kind of do some coaching and some training with the intention of equipping you and your team to really empower students to use RaiseMe in really low lift, easy ways. So yes, institutions do choose to partner with us, but any student in the country can use it for free. So if you have not partnered with us, it's likely that your students are already using us. But we actually, at the end of this, will talk about some of the benefits of partnership. But those are really, really good questions. Perfect. So I am going to hop out of this presentation, and I am going to log into what a student sees when they log into RaiseMe. Perfect. And let me make this a little bigger. So this is me as a student who attends RaiseMe Community College, and this is my portfolio. So really the site exists in two kinds of buckets. The first being this portfolio bucket, which is exactly what it sounds like. The second being the colleges bucket, and I always like to start here. So this is a place where students can begin to explore different institutions and begin to kind of build a list of where they might want to transfer to. So let's say I'm a student and I know I'd like to attend an in-state institution that is public and has my major, let's say my major is education. We'll say secondary. I know that maybe Texas isn't a good place to do that then, but let's say I am a psychology major. I just took 1,500 colleges and whittled that list down to 35. And some institutions are partnered with RaiseMe and some have yet to partner with RaiseMe. So institutions that are partnered with us are indicated with this little blue dollar sign. You can also use it as a filter over here. So let's say I wanted to learn more about MSU. When I click on MSU, the first thing I see, and this information exists for all colleges on our site, whether they're partnered with us or not, is some great helpful baseline information about how much does it cost to go here? How big is this institution? My favorite thing is a map of where the institution is. And I don't know if anyone's ever encountered students who maybe are considering a school, but they actually don't know how close or far the school is. We also have information on popular majors. So maybe if I'm a student that aspires for allied health, this could be a really good match for me. There's also this teaser of some of the scholarships that this institution offers, along with some links right to their website. And as we scroll to the bottom, we can see some demographic information as well, along with a link right to their admission site and to their application. So information to really get students started when they're thinking about what could be a good match for them. And let's say after reading this, I think MSU is a school I want to kind of keep on my short list. I would click this follow tab, which I already have. It tells me I'm following this school, which means it's going to appear in my queue of institutions. You'll also see on the right-hand side, I'm earning $1,300 right now. And that number is calculated based on the things I have entered in my portfolio. You can see I'm on track for submission. And what that means is every institution that we work with has a day where student portfolios are kind of sent to that institution. And then what the institution does is matches their applicants against their RaiseMe students. And when there's a match, when that student gets their financial aid award letter, the money that they see on RaiseMe represents the minimum amount of financial aid, merit aid that the student will receive. So this $1,300 will actually be incorporated into the financial aid letter directly from the institution. And let's see if I wanted to learn a little bit more about the scholarships. And this is where we really try to signal to students, this is the list, the menu of activities that you can engage in that's going to not only allow you to earn, but really make you a strong applicant to an institution. It's a little roadmap to signal to the student. So the first thing we tell students, what are the scholarship requirements for this institution? This institution requires a 3.0. The application due date is 8/1. So all good things to keep students on track. And I know, and this has probably happened to people in the room, that sometimes students lose track of application deadlines. I know my students would lose track of that. This is a place where if a student logs into RaiseMe, that all that information is compiled in one uniform place that they can easily access. And as we scroll down, we start to get to some of the really fun stuff. So this institution has chosen to incentivize earning A's, earning B's, taking a full course load. I love the idea that we could say to a student, if you get a B in a class, just shoot for 1 B, and that'll be a good foundation for you to start to earn some scholarships. Extracurriculars, participating in a sport, volunteer in your community. I know many of your students are really excelling at this right now. Work experience. So we know that your students are working to support themselves and to support their families. And every institution that we work with for community college students actually offers this work experience micro scholarship. Honors and awards, student government, Phi Theta Kappa, which I know you're all familiar with. And as we scroll down, students can actually earn, wow, and MSU has quite a bit, students can actually earn scholarships for engaging with the four-year institution, which we know is correlated with a really successful transfer process. So for example, this institution, students earn $100 for taking a campus virtual tour. And we know right now virtual tours are something that are probably top of mind for your students. And this link will actually take you or take a student to where they can access the information to how to sign up for the virtual tour. Follow them on social media, visit an information session, referral, and this progress scholarship is really incentivizing the student to stay on track for associate's degree completion. So 30 credit hours, 45 credit hours, 60 credit hours. And if your institution's doing anything with guided pathways, you'll notice that those 15 credit increments correlate with some of the KPIs and some of the guidelines for guided pathways, where often institutions have checkpoints, right? Meet with your advisor at 30, meet with your advisor at 45. So we really want to make sure that we are replicating that so it can be helpful to you. So this is the college search side of the platform. And the other thing I can show you is this My List option actually shows all the institutions the student is following, along with how far the institution is away, and the student can begin to sort who has the highest tuition, the lowest tuition, where am I earning the most money, and it can just provide the student with some transparency during their decision-making process. I can also hop back over here to the portfolio. So this is my portfolio. On the right-hand side, you can see these are all the institutions that I've expressed interest in. And I can see for each one how much scholarship, merit scholarship money I'm earning. You'll also see that I'm following Texas State University, which is a school that has yet to partner with RaiseMe. Students can still follow these institutions. And if I was following TSU and TSU decided to join RaiseMe tomorrow, when I logged in as a student, I would actually see a dollar amount here. So it's really valuable for students to still engage with that, because the menu of institutions that we have available only expands every day. We add new schools. And as I go through my portfolio, you'll see that it matches the achievements that were listed under the scholarships tab. So my grades, my honors and awards, my work experience, and so forth are logged here. One thing we've kind of learned is if your institution is not using anything to create co-curricular transcripts, this can be a really nice way to do that. And I say that because not only is that information captured here, students can actually export that information right into this resume, where we kind of clean it up with them, and it's something they could take to an employer, they could take to a four-year school as a way to stay organized. And I would love to show you what it looks like when I add a course and why students get excited. So let's say, and we'll enter one for fall. In 2019, in the fall, I took RaiseMe 200. It was Advanced RaiseMe. I think that's the class you're all in right now. It was an education. It was 3 credits, and I earned an A in the class. As soon as I save that, you'll see on the right-hand side that I start to get all these little high fives. And I don't know if you saw it, but all of the money right here in real time jumped up. And if I wanted to check in and see, what is it? Oh, I got $600 from Texas Lutheran. That's great. This notifications tab actually tells me exactly what I got scholarships for. So I can actually log and come here and see, wow, I just earned from all these institutions for keeping a 3.87 GPA, for taking a full course load, for getting an A. And again, just really giving students a lot of affirmation and a lot of confidence is what we're trying to build. So that is the tour through the student site. And the last thing I can draw your attention to is this little heart sign. And what this is students can actually refer their friends to join RaiseMe. So if you have a student who's a president of an organization, your student government president, they could actually use this to invite their peers to earn scholarships as well. So I'm going to take a pause there before I log into the educator site, just to make sure I'm not missing anything in the Q&A section. But feel free to drop those questions in there.
So Tara, one of the questions that I'd love for you to answer live in the Q&A is, do students need to be financially eligible in order to earn the scholarships?
That is an excellent question. Some institutions that we work with, students do have to be Pell eligible. However, when students actually develop their RaiseMe account, and I can actually show you what that looks like, we do ask the student if they, let me find the exact question. We do ask the student if they are receiving Pell, and they can say yes, no, or I don't know. If the student says, no, I'm not receiving Pell, we will actually strip away scholarships that they're not eligible for, so they won't see anything that isn't accessible to them as not to disappoint them. But yes, we do have a handful of institutions where the student has to have Pell eligibility. We do have a handful of institutions that award in-state, but maybe not out of state. But we're very conscientious about making sure that students see things that are only applicable to them. And a question in the chat was, how did you get to the notifications? The notifications is this little bell up here. And if I click in that, it gives me kind of a running tally of all the things that I just earned for. So I earned I mean, $1,600 from an institution for working at Bluey's coffee shop, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for things that your students are already engaging in. And we certainly want to make sure that your students have a lot of transparency and that they're not leaving money on the table. I guarantee we have students in two-year institutions that are sitting on funds that maybe they don't know that they are. So one of our main goals is to really share that information with them, because as we noted in our poll, those financial barriers are some of the things that really weigh on students the most.
And another question came into the chat bar as well, is do students need to have a certain GPA for this scholarship?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Every four-year school we work with sets their own GPA threshold. I've seen them as low as a 2.0. I've seen them as high as a 3.5. So right now, my GPA that I'm hovering over is a 3.87. It's pretty high. Let's say my GPA dropped down to a 2.8. There still might be scholarships I'm eligible for, and there might be ones that I'm really close to. So let's say I'm at a 2.8 and I'm following a school that requires a 3.0. What I would see over in this right-hand bar is a little note to me that says boost your GPA. And it kind of signals to the student, there's money waiting for you right here, but let's get that GPA up just a little bit. The other thing that we do is, let's say I have a semester, I've been at a 3.0, I have a semester where I dip to a 2.8, and then I come back to a 3.0. My money is restored to me. So it kind of signals to the student, you know, not all is lost. If you boost that GPA, that money's going to come right back to you. So again, it's just a way to motivate, affirm, keep students on track, and get them excited about, you know, the idea of these little achievements that they can do. And I see the chat bar blinking. Yeah, so the question.
We have a, oh, sorry.
No, I think we saw it at the same exact time. It's a really, really good question, and it's really timely. So in summary, the question is, if I have a student in high school who's using RaiseMe, they convert their account to a community college account, can they earn for the things they did in high school? Largely speaking, the student resets when they start their community college account. And the reason for that is the four-year institutions have different kind of pots of money, essentially, for first-time freshmen and transfers. What I can say, though, is if you're a high school student and you took some dual enrollment college courses, you can absolutely enter those into the community college portfolio as college level work. So while everything might not carry over, college level work would. So if you're a student in high school and you've taken an English comp, maybe you've taken a college algebra, you're going to go into that already earning money, which is really great. Cool. Well, I'm going to sign out of my student account so I can show you how to access the educator portion of the site. So if I was an educator and I wanted to create an account right now, what I would do is I would go to the sign up button. I would indicate that I'm an educator, so you have purple hair. I would indicate I'm a community college educator, and then I would request an account using my institutional email address, which is really important. And then what happens at that point is we manually verify the employment of every single person who requests an account from us to make sure you are who you say you are. Once we have verified you, then you have access to a portal that allows you to see information about your students. And students do have the ability to opt out of that. Some students choose to do that, but most of our students do opt in. But let me log in as an educator. I'm going to try to get my password right on the first try. So successful. So this is what you see as a community college educator when you log in, and we'll take a tour of everything in here. So the first thing I'm going to see are my students, and you'll see I have a column for literally my students and all students. All students are all the students at RaiseMe Community College, which is where I work in this scenario, who are using RaiseMe. So I can see there's 4 students, and I recognize Ian because Ian's in my caseload. And I put a check mark next to him, and all that does is slide him over into this queue where I can keep track of students who are in my advising caseload or they're in my classes if I'm teaching, to separate them from the general student pool. Let's say I had an advising appointment with a student. I apologize for my slow Wi-Fi. And I clicked on Tara. When I click on Tara's account, I can see the courses that I've taken, my jobs in volunteering. I've volunteered for Meals on Wheels, and you can see the entire breadth of what the student has done. Just like the student, you can export that into that resume PDF, which is really helpful. We're finding this is helpful if students are approaching you for a lot of recommendation and maybe you can't recall every little thing they've done over the past couple years. This is a nice place where it's compiled. Under earnings, I can see all of the institutions the student is considering transferring to and how much money she's earning. I think this is one of the most valuable pieces of information in the portal personally, where I could sit down if I had an advising appointment with a student, pull this up and say, tell me about Wayne State or tell me about Rochester. What is it about these institutions? And we can begin to develop a plan with the student. I could also message the student. So let's say I saw the student was interested in Wayne State, and I know Wayne State's going to be on campus on Thursday. I could say, hey, Tara, swing by, the lobby on Thursday. There's going to be an admissions rep there. You might really want to connect with that. So the student piece is one component of what lives in the educator portal. A few other things live across this top line. So I'm actually going to go from left to right. The resources tab. In this tab, there's kind of 2 flavors of information. Some of the information is about RaiseMe, how to engage students, tools you can use on social media, flyers, etc. And then some of the other resources are actually curriculum pieces and things you can use in your classroom about transfer planning or financial literacy or transfer checklists and so forth. So if you're teaching first year experience or you're preparing for new student orientation, there's materials in here as well. And one thing I would direct you to in the resources guide is this marketing toolkit. Inside here are flyers, templates, copy and paste, really activities that take less than 10 minutes that can help engage your students with RaiseMe. We also have our video tutorial suite in here as well. So maybe everyone's kind of teaching online right now. There's items in here that you could link to your online course shell and say, here's a 5-minute tutorial of how to set up your RaiseMe account for your students. The colleges tab looks a lot like the tab for students. The difference for you as an educator is if I click on an institution and I click on their scholarship tab as an educator, we show you as the educator what the maximum is for that institution. And then as you scroll down, you can see everything that student can earn for, some of the deadlines. So if you were in an appointment with a student and they said to you, I'm really considering Dominican, which is right outside of San Francisco, you would have all this information right at your fingertips. Demo mode is exactly what it sounds like. So let's say you're at new student orientation or you're in a classroom setting with students or you're on Zoom with students. This demo mode behaves exactly like the student tool that I just showed you. So you could show students how to add courses, how to search for colleges and so forth, just to give them a little context. And the last tool I can direct you to is this invite tool. So let's say you wanted to invite your students to join RaiseMe. We really pride ourselves in the fact that it can take less than 5 minutes to invite your students to join. And the last thing we ever want to do is make work for you. So this link, if I copied it, would actually be a customized link for my institution that would say, join your peers at RaiseMe Community College in earning student scholarships for transfer. So the custom link is available for you. You could put it on your website and your email signature or anywhere that you thought might be helpful. The easiest way to really invite your students to join is to put their emails in here. So copy your class roster, copy your advising road. You can edit this message to say whatever you want, and then it sends them a link inviting them to join. So you might say right now, hey students, I know that you just donated a lot of PPE to this hospital. If you sign up for RaiseMe, I know you'll earn scholarships for that. A creative way that some schools have used this is to announce transfer fairs, to say, hey, there's a fair or there's a virtual fair coming up. Use RaiseMe to do some research. So when you talk to the admissions reps, you actually have some questions for them, and you can engage them in a really well-informed conversation. You may or may not be using Google Classroom. I know many of our high schools do, but maybe our two-year institutions not so much. But if you were, you can actually import your students directly and send them an invitation as well. So that is the quick tour of everything that lives in the educator site. And I think I mentioned this, but I'll mention it again, that this is actually free for you and your institution. So I'm going to take a pause there because I knew that was a lot to walk through. And I'm going to check in the chat bar. And please, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A or throw them in the chat. And Jamie and I can get right on top of those.
So we did have a question that came in on the chat bar. I'm a school partner working directly in the school system with students. Do I have access to this tool or part of this tool?
Yes. So if you are an educator, and it sounds like you might be working with high school students, we have what are called mentor accounts. So if you went to the RaiseMe website, you would click, that was not the right word, was it? Click the sign up button, and you'll see one of the options is mentor account, and that would be the account that you would want to use. That's a really good question. Any other questions, either about the educator tool or the student tool? And I'll give a little pause because I know you might be typing. Okay, great. I'll just highlight too that Ian, who you see on the screen, is a real person who works with us. So every time I log in here, I laugh because if you look at his grades, he says he has a 4.0, and I'm like, I don't know, Ian. So let's go back then.
Oh, Tara, one more question came in.
Sure.
And we have a parent who has a student who is graduating this year. And is this a tool that has to be set up through his school?
Yeah. So first off, congratulations on your student's pending graduation. That's really exciting. This does not have to be set up by your school. And let me I'll sign out of this account and show you what it looks like. So this is our base website, public facing, completely free. And if you're a student, whether you're a 2-year student or a high school student, all you're going to do is click this I'm a student. The student would select which flavor of student they are. I'm a high school student. Student enters their email address, and then they can get started from there. And I will say too, if you're working with students, maybe you're working with a community college and you have a student who's already taken 30 credits, or you're working with a high school and you have some juniors. Students can retroactively enter grades and achievements as well. So for high school students, they can enter anything over the course of kind of their high school curriculum going back to 9th grade. And then for community college students, you can go back 10 years of community college coursework or 10 years of activities prior or post high school. So don't feel like if you're getting started now that you're too late. We certainly would want your student to engage. And I see someone on the chat.
We just got a nice thank you.
Oh, perfect. Great. Yes. And I would say too, for folks on the line, if you're a parent or you're with an institution, feel free to bring this back to them. And that's actually kind of the part of the conversation that we're going to hop into is how to build a relationship with RaiseMe to make sure that your students have access to these tools. And this is kind of from the perspective, the community college perspective, but I think it's really applicable to the high school perspective as well. And our goal is to build relationships with high schools and community colleges, to better understand what your needs are and to better understand how we can be helpful to you. These are good faith relationships. There's no contract, there's no MOU. And some of the things that we provide to make RaiseMe really easy to share with your students are email and communication templates that are basically copy and paste, flyers, posters, handouts that you could either physically or electronically share with students. We can provide you some aggregate data on your student engagement. So for example, our community college partners every Monday get a report from us that shows them how much money their students are earning, the top 10 institutions that their students are interested in, which can be really helpful for articulation agreements. They can see the total number of students who are using RaiseMe and also which years they intend to graduate in. And if there's other data that you need, we can drill down on that as well. For schools that are partners, we also provide coaching and webinars. So webinars like this, where we actually can connect with your entire team. If you wanted to host this presentation for educators in your community college or district, we're happy to do that. We also provide curriculum, and we also provide support for social media and so forth. And our intention is always, and Jamie and I were talking about this earlier, is when we invite either a high school or a community college to share information about RaiseMe, we really want the effort that you put in to be something that is like less than 10 minutes. Because we know, and especially now, that you have a lot on your plate. So we try to be really mindful to be as low lift as we can with your time. And from the 2-year perspective, some places where our message has really resonated: academic advising, transfer planning initiatives. If you're working with new student orientation, you might have a conversation or part of your agenda that talks about transfer planning. We can be a really nice accent to that. First year experience, which is where we're kind of teaching students how to be good students. We have materials for that, and we would love to talk to you about your first year experience curriculum. Financial literacy, April's Financial Literacy Month for anyone who didn't know it, so we have a lot of materials for that. Early intervention from the community college perspective. So if you're working with students and it's the middle of the semester and they're sitting on maybe some C's and D's and they end up being flagged for early intervention, we're finding saying to a student, if you bump that GPA up, here is a tangible amount of scholarship money that you can earn today, not 3 years from now, today. But that is a very powerful early intervention tool. And materials, and I won't go too deep into these, but we provide basically everything that's grab and go to make it easy for you. And we can also customize some of our collateral and customize some of your messaging for your institution as well. And these are some samples from 2-year institutions that we've worked with. So this is a template that we developed, and this message was posted in a first year experience course where they put this in kind of the master course shell that is then copied over and over again for each instructor, which is a really common practice. Just them copy and pasting this into the course shell resulted in 200 signups in a month. This institution right now has about 15% of their students. It's about 600 students who are using us, which is incredible. And they've been really, really happy with the conversations they've been able to have with students because they're engaged with transfer planning, which is kind of the dream, right? Examples from other institutions, if you look on the right-hand side, all this institution did is they sent out an invitation to a transfer event that they were having, and they keep our logo at the bottom, and we help co-brand them with that, but just to signal to the student, this is something that you might want to look into. Chandler Gilbert, which is a school in Arizona, this is copy and paste a template that we've developed, and they put it out on their Twitter feed. And some other information from schools we work with. Some of these are in California and Arizona. I love this institution in the upper right-hand corner. It's Arizona Western, which is in Yuma. Actually put us on their Blackboard login page, and every student has to log into Blackboard, which is their learning management tool. So every student kind of gets to see what RaiseMe is. And just a final note on student impact. The core of this, the the outcome that we want is we want to see students be really empowered, have a lot of efficacy and a lot of financial transparency. And our goal is to make more scholarship students. So I always tell this story, and I'll kind of end us here and take some questions. I worked in admissions at a community college for a long time, about 5-6 years. And we would try to talk to students about transfer on day one. And I can't tell you how many students would sit in my office and they're overwhelmed, right, to be there. And when I would talk about transfer, they would say things like, maybe I didn't do so well in high school. I've been out of school for a long time. I'm not really a scholarship student, and would kind of push back on transfer before we even really got started. And what I saw in that was a lack of confidence in students. And I think really one of our goals is to reach that student and say, I know this seems really overwhelming, but we're going to help you take it one step at a time. If you get an A and a B this semester and join a student organization, you've earned some money, and really make it a compact, actionable thing that students can do. So with that, I'm going to take some questions. I see the chat bar is lit up.
I'm actually going to take some Q&A questions that came in ahead of time, if that's okay, Tara?
That sounds super.
Great. So a first question is, can students enter high school coursework that was completed in middle school?
Really great question. I might have to ask someone on the high school side of the house to answer that. But when we send out the follow-up from this presentation, all of you will get an email from us. I will have that answer. I believe if the coursework carries a high school course numbering or name, that is okay. But let me confirm that so I can give you really accurate information. But really fair question, right? Because you want to earn for every little thing.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have a community college educator who has a high school senior who's graduating. And the question is with all the pandemic stuff going on, how can we accurately reflect what our students have completed in high school, since some courses are now null?
Yeah, good question. And I can actually take maybe some screen captures of this and send it in the follow-up. Our grading scale on RaiseMe allows for more than just an A through F grading scale. Students can enter pass fail, students can enter numerical notes, students can enter incompletes and withdrawals. So if your institution has moved to like a pass fail, and I've seen that both in high school and in the community college, the student would be able to enter that.
Okay. And then we have a community college educator who's working with college minority males for the first time and wants to know if there is a way to share this with his students as we meet virtually at this time.
Yes.
Either a general presentation or anything else we can offer.
Yes, the big answer is yes, and I would love to connect with you after this to learn a little bit more about your project. If you're meeting virtually with a student, we have slide decks that you could use. I would encourage you to use the site if you're doing screen sharing. We also have some one-pagers that you can either share your screen or send it to the student. And additionally, we have tutorial videos where you could share the screen. If you were doing group sessions, that might be something that we are actually able to help with. But for the one-on-one advising, I'm happy to send some resources. And someone in the chat bar actually asked a similar question about where can I find the resources. I will send out, subsequent to this conversation, a toolkit that has actually links to all of our templates, all of our flyers. And if you're someone who wants to use those, we certainly encourage you to do that, but we would actually love to have a conversation with you as well, just to get to know your institution, to see if there's anything that we can support you with over the next few months in particular. Great. And I'll take a pause here too, just in case folks are kind of thinking over any other questions. But sort of the follow-up as we're winding down is that all of you were happy to send out a recording of this. We're happy to send out the deck. I can send out the toolkit. I can follow up on the question about the middle school student who took high school courses. And the last thing I can send in the follow-up is actually next Wednesday, we are having a really, really wonderful panel discussion with leadership from Santa Monica College in California, Ivy Tech Community College in Indiana, and Oakton Community College, which is outside of Chicago. And our panel is going to have basically kind of a best practices in learning show and tell, where they're going to highlight some of the things that they've done well over the past few weeks and some of the things that they're working on. And then part of that presentation is actually going to be a Q&A roundtable where basically you can ask these educators anything about what they're working on, so we can all continue to have a dialogue and share and really learn from each other. Great. When can we expect to receive this recording and deck? I would say by tomorrow. Yeah. I have to make sure it downloads first. Sometimes it takes a second. Great. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I'm just going to give it one more second. It was so great to connect with everyone today. I'll certainly make sure that we follow up, and I'll invite everyone to our panel discussion next week. All right, take care, everyone. And I'm going to hang on the line for a few more minutes. So if there's more questions that kind of pipe through that chat bar, I am here to get them. And thank you for Jamie for being an excellent moderator.
Of course. Thank you, everybody. It was so great to speak with you today.